Hi, welcome to another edition of Real Reviews Cinematic Underground. I'm back again. This is Chuck and Chike. I'm Chike, that's Chuck, and we're going to talk about the movies we saw this week. So, Chuck, what did you see this week?
I'm going to let you lead off. It's your show, you're going to lead.
You want me to lead off?
I want you to lead.
All right, so first thing that I saw this week was something we've already covered on this show before. That's Take This Waltz, directed and written by Sarah Polley, starring Michelle Williams, Seth Rogen, and the third guy whose name completely escapes me. I don't remember his name, but he looks a lot like
Luke Kirby.
Luke Kirby, but he looks a lot like Paul Rudd, in my opinion. The film is basically about this woman named Margot, who happens to have a chance encounter at a period piece demonstration with Luke Kirby's character, Daniel. They become friends. They seem to have some sort of a romantic attraction and playful banter with each other that lasts throughout her entire trip. Where is she at? In Britain somewhere?
I don't really remember where she was at. All I remember is the plane ride back, because that's really where the connection begins.
The plane ride is where the fun begins, because you have the playful banter between the two of these people. She's working hard not to be interested in him, and he's just hamming it up, watching her do it, just completely destroying her. And so what happens is she goes home with him. They share a cab together, and at the end of the playfulness, she says, "I'm married," and gets out of the cab and goes to her door. He says, "Well, I'm not too far away," and then it's revealed that he's her next door neighbor. Thus begins the romantic triangle
in her mind.
In her mind, and the worst romantic triangle humanly known to man, because it's revealed that her husband, Seth Rogen, is a chef, but he's a very specific kind of chef. He cooks chicken, different varieties of chicken.
He's working on a cookbook.
He's working on a cookbook, and he plays practical jokes on her. They have this thing where they talk about different ways of killing each other through the use of household objects. And it's a very playful banter, very playful friendship. She clearly wants more out of the relationship than she's getting, specifically in the intimacy department. And it seems that this next-door neighbor provides this allure to what she could possibly have elsewhere. She has a best friend played by Sarah Silverman.
That's her sister-in-law.
Oh, her sister-in-law, excuse me. Her sister-in-law, played by Sarah Silverman, who is also a recovering alcoholic. And the two of them really kind of connect over the ideas of what they think marriage should be. Although Margot isn't really fanciful at giving her opinion, she just really listens to Sarah Silverman, not really taking her advice, but knowing that everything that Sarah Silverman says about marriage is basically applying to her at the moment. I don't like this film at all. This film is basically, in my opinion, about desire. What Michelle Williams' character Margot desires of her husband is more intimacy, but he is more playful. What she desires of Daniel is, that close playfulness as well as the intimacy, and she can't get that from him either. She's really stuck between a rock and a hard place between these two guys. But may I remind you, she's married. And so, to me, it really feels rather foolish to be indulging in the fact that, there's this other option because this person explores this half of the relationship that I don't currently have. I find that to be very dull, very selfish, and nothing is really moving about it. You're just kind of waiting for her to give up and go after what she says she wants. There's a really a telling scene that takes place in the cafe where she completely admits to her desires but does not act on them, and asks the person that she's with, Daniel, to describe what would happen if they were actually a couple. And it's pretty much the most off-putting scene in the entire movie, because you're watching her mentally react to what he's saying, but knowing that she can't have it. It's really quite pointless. I find that Sarah Polley's strength as a director is that she's good with intimacy. And when I say intimacy, what I'm really talking about is the closeness of her characters. She knows how to make characters, but surrounding them around a plot that makes sense is not her forte, in my opinion. Chuck, what did you think of this film?
I hated this movie. I don't think this movie is so much about desire as it is indecision. And that is the big problem with the movie. She just doesn't know what to do. Yeah. And she can't articulate what she wants, which is just so frustrating. You know, yeah. and of course, in not being able to do anything, she alienates the viewer immediately.
Yeah.
Rogan is not all that appealing either.
Right. Can I point out that he's a bit of a douchebag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He doesn't pay attention to his wife. I mean, he's happy with her. He's deeply in love with her, but he doesn't pay attention to his wife.
Not in the way she wants.
Not in the way she wants. No.
Mm-hmm. You know, and the Luke Kirby character is a fantasy object. You know, he listens to her. He'll meet all of her needs. He'll satisfy her in every way possible, sexually, emotionally, intellectually, and he's got a cute little job. He pulls a rickshaw around. I mean, it was just so insulting to me. I mean, this is a composite fantasy figure that doesn't exist. You know, and that was the other thing that I found insulting about the film, too. Yeah, this one just really drove me up the wall.
Yeah. Seth Rogen does, however, get probably what I would think is the sweetest, most plum acting moment in the entire film, when when after it's revealed that, you know, she really likes this other neighbor, she admits this to her husband, and he's processing everything, he says, "Go take a shower." And she's like, I don't really want to. He said, "Go take a shower." And earlier on in the film, we see that, you know, every morning when she wakes up, he pours water on her, cold water, when she's taking a hot shower. And she always complained about how she needs to get that pipe fixed. So when he says, "Go take a shower," he reveals to her that he did this every day, every morning that she woke up. And he's like, "I thought that when we were elderly and old and I told you that this is what that I've been doing all your life, that you'd love me for it." That was kind of a long-term joke. And I thought that was the sweetest moment in the entire film.
Yeah, I don't know why she would love him for it, though. I never could figure that out. Oh, you dump water on me every morning? You know,
yeah.
that's just more of his douchiness there.
Yeah,
you know, and I think
it is, but it's also endearing because it's like, here's a memory we could hold for the rest of our lives. Even though it's not a sweet memory, it's still a memory.
And therein lies the problem.
Exactly. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay.
I hated this movie. Let's move on.
Yeah. Second movie that I saw this week, Argo, directed by Ben Affleck, based on the true story of 6 people who are part of the American Embassy, is that correct?
Yes, they were at the American Embassy in Iran.
In Iran, who, at the height of the protesting of the Americans, because they took asylum with...
They gave the Shah asylum.
The Shah asylum. Mm-hmm. The protesters break through the American embassy, and 6 people escape, and the rest are, I guess, captured?
Yeah, this was before you, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, this was, I remember this every day that it happened. 444 days those people were captured and held at the Iranian embassy. Followers of the Ayatollah Khomeini protested, as you say, because we had given the Shah asylum and they wanted him turned back over to them. Of course, we refused to do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, they kept the hostages there for 444 days.
And 6 escaped. And
Six escaped.
And they were part of the Canadian ambassadors.
No, they weren't part of it. They hide in the Canadian ambassador's home.
They hide in his home.
Yeah, they know that that's one of the few safe places left in the city. And the CIA somehow gets wind of this, that they have gotten out and are sitting there.
Yeah.
And have decided that they've got to get them out somehow, some way, and they don't have a good idea among them.
Enter Ben Affleck's character, who is a CIA operative?
I think they call him an extraction specialist.
Okay, he's an extraction specialist.
And his name is Tony Mendez, real guy. He has a book out recounting all of his adventures, which have all finally been declassified, so he can now write about them. And the interesting thing about this book is that Argo, as fascinating as it is only 1 chapter.
Okay.
in the book. So you can imagine all the other things that he is writing or talking about.
Yeah. So basically, the whole film of Argo revolves around a fake movie being made so that these 6 people can be extracted from the Canadian ambassador's house.
Right. Affleck says he's going to go in and pretend to be a Canadian producer. He and his crew want to scout around Iran for locations for their new movie, Argo, which is a Star Wars ripoff. So he has to get into Iran, get to the Canadian ambassador's house, tell the 6 people what's going on, give them new identities, and say, hey, you've got to learn this stuff because they're going to check you, and get them out of there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they know, or the Affleck character knows they're going to check on this. The Iranian government might just check to see if this is a legitimate movie. So he goes to Hollywood and
Gets financing by the CIA.
well, financing by the CIA, but what's more important is that he gets in cahoots with a makeup man he had worked with before, played by John Goodman, and who introduced him to a producer played by Alan Arkin. And they actually take out ads in the trade papers. They come up with a poster. They have a cold reading with a cast. This is as legitimate of a fake movie as you're ever going to get.
Yeah.
And they've got to know what's going on in case the Iranian government calls them and says, hey, can you give me some background?
Yeah.
Which they do.
Yeah. No real spoiler to say that these 6 people got out safely.
If you know your history, yeah.
One of the things that really surprised me about this film is its surprising amount of levity. It's very funny.
Yeah, it is very funny. And I think that, Affleck, he's made 2 very good movies before this, and this one is even better, I think. And that has got to be very hard combining these tones, because you're on the edge of your seat one minute, and then you're laughing the next, and that's not easy to do.
Yeah, there's an amazing amount of balance in this film. I was very surprised. I thought, okay, it's all going to be very, very serious. There's going to be a level of intensity that I can't even fathom. How in the world is Affleck going to pull this off? Because I don't think I can stand in my seat for, an hour and 30 minutes watching this intensity. And luckily, there are 2 characters, 2 very specific characters, that really provide the laughs in this film. One of which played by Alan Arkin. And he is very well known for being, this crotchety, cranky old guy who doesn't take crap from anybody.
He's got the cynicism down pat.
Yeah.
And this role is tailor-made for him.
And John Goodman, the makeup artist.
Right. Makeup artist, I can't remember what his name was, but he is a real person. He ended up winning an Oscar because he developed the makeup for Planet of the Apes.
Which one? The original?
The original, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. I also liked the supporting cast in this film. Victor Garber really wasn't given much to do, so I don't really care about him, no offense. But I do like Bryan Cranston and Kyle Chandler. I want to see them in more movies together.
Yeah, Cranston is Affleck's boss,
Yeah.
who's really caught in the middle on a lot of things.
He is.
Yeah.
And then Kyle Chandler is the chief of staff, I believe.
Right, he has to answer to him, and there's a great moment there about 3/4 of the way through, which I didn't see coming, where there are no plane tickets.
Yeah, no plane tickets.
And they are headed to the airport, and they got to get out, and there are no plane tickets waiting for them, and they've got to solve this problem real quick. And I thought, in my mind, that was the best sequence in the movie.
Yeah.
As far as the tension, I really like that.
I also like the tension of the moment where he had there was one particular person who was caught, and he had to use Farsi to communicate.
Yes.
That to me was the moment of tension.
Well, and that also, that moment was good too because it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You didn't realize that he knew the language, and he certainly looked as though he was going to be one of the weak links. You were worried about him blowing it.
Yeah.
And for him to come through, yeah, that was a good moment.
That
as well.
was a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this film. I think it's one of those other films that is going to be an Oscar contention.
Oh yeah.
Come January. I don't really have a bad thing to say about this movie. It's almost flawlessly executed.
Yeah, and as you say, awards time is going to come around. I think it'll be nominated. I think he'll be nominated for director. I think Arkin will probably be nominated for supporting actor.
I really want Affleck to win. I've wanted him to win for the other 2 films he's directed, but I think I really want him to win here.
He won't win. The nomination is his win. The nomination will be his recognition that, hey, you've arrived. We got a long way to go here. You know, we got 10 weeks, and there's a lot of stuff coming. But
I think Tom Hooper's going to be up for it when he does Les Miserables.
You know, but it's neat as far as Affleck watching him develop. This is really cool to watch how things are going for him, because you can see him getting better with every movie. He hasn't made a bad one yet.
Yeah, I know. It's really shocking. I expected him to be hitting a midpoint, a stumbling block, but he hasn't.
And I don't know about you, but I thought the one weak link in the film was him in front of the camera.
I agree. I agree completely. He wasn't really given much of an emotional pathos other than, I'm
his kid.
I'm a dad, but that's it.
Yeah, I mean, he was just, I felt he was a bit too low-key in a role that needed a bit more gravity, a bit more weight, a bit more charisma.
Who would you have given it to?
I don't know. Maybe his buddy Damon would have been interesting.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. I would have believed that.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing is at the end credits you get a little tiny speech from Jimmy Carter.
Right.
In modern times.
Mm-hmm.
And you also get the real life photos of the actual people.
Right. That's cool.
Which it's shocking how much they look like they're.
They really did a good job with that. And apparently this had obviously a huge reception at its world premiere, which was at the Toronto International Film Festival.
Right.
The ambassador is still alive.
Yeah.
And was there at this premiere, and of course got a rousing ovation.
Is Mendez not alive?
He is alive, yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. Mendez was a consultant on the film. Apparently, Affleck told me he was on the set every day, and apparently he pops up as an extra at some point. I'm going to go back and watch it again and see if I can pick him up.
All right. What did you see this week? Because we've been talking about me for a while.
Last night I saw Sinister with Ethan Hawke. Yes. Ethan Hawke plays a writer of true crime books.
Okay.
Goes back and he will look at cases that have not been solved.
Okay.
And we'll go back and do some digging and try to bring some sort of closure to these cases that he finds. Needless to say, it does not ingratiate him to any police force, because in his books he tends to make them look bad.
Yeah.
Oh, you blew this, you dropped this, blah, blah, blah. Well, he's in big need of a hit. He does not want to write textbooks. He does not want to do menial editing. He wants another hit because he has had a big book about 10 years before, had a taste of the limelight. The other two since then haven't been too good. So he hears about this case in Pennsylvania, about a family that was murdered. They were all hung simultaneously from a tree in their backyard. And a daughter of the family has gone missing. So 4 of them died, the girl has gone missing. And he decides that there is something wrong here, that they should have found the girl. There were no clues as to the murder or no leads. What happened? So he goes to investigate this, and he takes his family with him, daughter, son, wife. What he doesn't tell them is that they are moving into the house where this happened. They are moving actually into the crime scene. A key bit of information he keeps from his wife. She says at one point, just tell me we're not moving 2 blocks down from where the crime committed. Because apparently that was the modus operandi before. He says, we're not. This is a lie that comes back and bites him in the butt big time about halfway through, as you will well imagine.
Yeah.
So bad enough this, but then he goes up, as they're unpacking, he goes up into the attic. And in the attic, there is nothing except a box. There's one box, and it's labeled Home Movies. And there's an old film projector in it.
You don't watch those.
Oh, you've got to watch them. There's a Super 8. There's a Super 8 film projector in there, and 5 cans of Super 8 film.
Yeah, you don't watch those.
Oh, you have to watch them because they might provide clues as to what you're doing because you're researching the book. And he starts watching these movies, and the first one he watches, he sees the murder of the family at the house where he's at.
Oh, God.
And then he watches another.
No, don't.
And it's another family who gets killed in another incredibly gruesome way.
Oh, no.
I'm not telling you anything. This movie really disturbed me. It really disturbed me because of the things that happen to these families, and also because of what we eventually find out what happens to the child, because the MO is the same. A family is killed, but one child of the family has gone missing.
Okay, you're going to tell me after we end the show what happens.
I will, but you're not going to like it. I can't tell. I really shouldn't tell you.
Okay.
Let me tell you something, though. This movie
Good?
is deeply flawed, but incredibly effective. I cannot remember actually halfway through a movie saying, wow, the sound design in this movie is incredible. What they do with the sound design as far as music, ambient sound, creaks and squeaks in the thing, I mean, it just is immersive. It just is pervasive, and it sucks you in. The lighting is incredible, too. Most of this happens in the shadows, and then, of course, just the one lighted area, and, of course, then something happens. Hawk, I don't think ever gets enough credit for what he does, because he's just too pretty. But boy, you just see him unravel here.
I'm always immersed by what he does in his films.
You know, if you go back to Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, where he plays a guy who's not too bright, he does a great job there. And here, this is what Nicholson's performance in The Shining should have been, because you see this guy just completely come apart as the film goes on. The one flaw in the movie, though, is he does find that he consults an expert played by Vincent D'Onofrio.
Ooh, I love Vincent D'Onofrio.
He has two great scenes. He's a professor of the occult.
Oh.
And what the Hawk character notices is, in watching these films, he notices a symbol that pops up. He makes a copy of the symbol. He consults with the guy, and the guy says, yeah, this is a symbol that you use when these followers of this Babylonian deity called Bagul.
Yeah.
And we find out that Bagul, in his words, eats the souls of children.
Oh.
Okay.
So now we know what happens to the girl.
No, you don't. But here's the thing. Here is the big flaw of the film.
Okay.
Any parent, as soon as you hear the phrase, eats the soul of children,
should get your kids out of the house.
Pack the kids up and you're gone.
Yes.
You know. He doesn't.
That's
Eats
insane.
the souls of children is a key phrase
Why
here.
do you not?
Well, the filmmakers, they go on and they want us to believe, okay, he's so desperate for a hit that he's just going to hang on until he can finish the book.
At the sacrifice of your own kids, though.
Right. And the thing is that I could have accepted that with, okay, maybe this spirit is somehow manipulating him to stay. We don't get that.
Oh, well, that would help, yeah.
Yeah, we don't get the spirit is affecting, his mental state, so he's not making rational decisions.
Okay.
We don't get that. So that's the big flaw of the film. And yet, it's so damn creepy. It is so effective. It is so terrifying. You've got to stay and watch this thing.
Is it one of those ones where it doesn't matter?
In the end, it doesn't. It's like you've got to just overlook this huge flaw. And if you can do that, fine. And even if you can't, I'm still going to recommend the movie because it got under my skin more than anything I've seen in quite some time. Maybe it's because I'm a father. Maybe it is because I'm a family. If you've got a family, you don't want to see this movie, let me tell you. But let's just say, it delivers the goods.
Okay. So I have another question for you. I had the opportunity to see a second film yesterday that I did not see called The Kill List. Have you seen it?
I've seen parts of it, and I've heard it's very intriguing.
Okay, why?
Go for it.
I haven't seen it, so I can't.
Oh, I thought you said...
I wanted to, but I had to go to a lunch.
It's available on DVD. It is out.
Okay, well, I'll check it out, and then we'll get back to it, because that's also showing at the Art Theater. I wanted to mention that as well.
Yeah.
So those are your two options right now. Take This Waltz and The Kill List.
He has an interesting horror film coming up, I believe, next week, VHS.
Yeah, that's part of the Found Footage Festival, and that's what I was also going to mention.
Okay.
That's something I would like to go see with you at some point.
What, VHS?
Yeah.
I thought you've seen it.
No.
Okay.
I don't do well with horror films. That's why I'm suggesting it. I tried to get Austin to stay with me for
the horror film?
The Kill List, and he hates horror, so he wouldn't stay.
Okay. Right.
And neither would Connie, the other film critic that was present at Take This Waltz. So I was not going to sit in that theater alone.
Well, VHS is available on pay-per-view, I know.
Yeah.
It's sitting at home on my thing, so I'm going to watch it.
The last movie that I had the pleasure to see this week is something that probably won't be out for another 3 months, called On the Road. Now, this film stars Garrett Dillahunt.
I think it's Garrett Hudland. He was in the Tron film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Garrett Hudland and Kristen Stewart. Now, the first thing I want to say is that this film is not about Garrett Dillahunt's character Dean. It's about a character named Sal who worships Dean. And basically what happens is there's this repetitive cycle. Sal goes on the road to find Dean. They hang out. He goes on another adventure by himself, meets a couple people, goes back to Dean. They hang out until at some point it becomes too dangerous for Sal to continue spending time with Dean, and he goes back to being a writer because he's chronicling all his adventures on the road, getting to Dean, going to other places, getting back to Dean, going to other places, and it's a unique and interesting film, but really to me it feels so repetitive after the first hour and 10 minutes.
Well, it's based on the Jack Kerouac Beat novel.
Yeah.
And it, of course, was a significant piece of work in the way it broke form with traditional novelistic form.
Right.
So, in my mind, it would be almost impossible to make a movie out of it.
That's what people have said.
Yeah, if you read the book, it does have this meandering, repetitive quality. It is very stream of conscious. As far as the way he approached the whole thing. So I'm quite curious as to how they would even attempt this.
It works, but it's one of those films that works, but it doesn't work. The part that works is you love seeing him explore new places. You love seeing him interact with Dean. There's a third character who's not a main character. This guy with glasses who also worships Dean, but not in the way that Sal worships Dean. Mm-hmm. This other character worships Dean romantically and is always angry because he has women that he spends time with. Preferably a 16-year-old named Mary Lou that he married, played by Kristen Stewart, and another architect woman played by Kirsten Dunst named Camille. Another actress that I love that didn't get a lot of screen time in this film, but I love her, Elizabeth Moss, plays the character of a wife of a fourth person who spends time with Dean throughout his travels, and I like her character in this film. It's very representative of the time, of the time period, which is 1940s, early 1950s. Like I said, I did not find myself being a fan of this film because it dragged after a while, because you knew that he was going to go on an adventure, meet some unique people, have some unique experiences, and eventually the ending doesn't surprise me at all. I can't really tell you about the ending here because it's not something that I want to give away for people who are going to see this movie months from now. But it's an ending that fits Dean as a character perfectly. If I had to rate it, I would give it probably maybe 3 stars, but mostly 2.5. Mm-hmm. I really couldn't go higher than that. If I had to rate Argo, then I would give it 5 stars because it's almost flawless. I can't touch that. And for Take This Waltz, I would give it 1.
I agree.
So, are there any other films that you've seen recently?
7 Psychopaths, but maybe we can talk about that next week because it is much more complex than you think.
All right, so that's one you want me to see then,
I think that would be a good idea.
All right. So until next time, I'm Chike Coleman, and that's Chuck, and this has been Real Review Cinematic Underground. We'll see you later.